Hello and welcome back to the Matrix Green Pill podcast. I'm your host, Hilmarie Hutchison, and today's guest is a marketing force who blends analytical thinking with cultural storytelling to deliver real business and community impact. Ayah AlRashdan is the marketing director at LinkViva, but that title barely scratches the surface. Over the past decade, Ayah has led some of the region's most transformative campaigns. She's not just a marketer, she's a strategist, a team builder, and a cultural innovator. Ayah, welcome and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Hilmarie. I'm really glad to be here as well.
So could you please introduce yourself to our audience and tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up here in the UAE?
I come from Jordan, so I'm Jordanian. I was born and raised in Qatar. So I've had that kind of cultural mix as well. I've studied my engineering bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. And then I decided that this is not something that I really want to work with. And I went ahead and did my MBA to try to support myself in pursuing my passion, which was basically marketing. I was lucky enough to have my first job in where I was actually doing my master's, which was Malaysia. So I traveled to Malaysia for a couple of years, lived there. And this is where I started my career in marketing. I've been in it for around 15 years now, just working across multiple sectors, across multiple types of clients, from government to private to startups to SMEs. So it's been a really exciting journey so far.
You've had quite an interesting life already. As you mentioned, born in Jordan, raised in Qatar, engineering degree, living and working in Malaysia. So already a vast experience, a lot of cultural diversity in your background. So you mentioned that you started out on the engineering path and then transitioned into marketing. What gave you the courage to make that leap, and how did that shift shape the way you approach strategy today?
All right, that's a very nice question, to be honest. So basically, just to understand why I went into engineering in Jordan, us kids, or back then when I was a lot younger, we had two options. So it's either you're a doctor or you're an engineer, and this is what your parents push you towards. And I was really good at math and physics, and when it came for me to choose, I've had a couple of options in mind, which were both put aside. And then I had to make a choice between all the engineering majors that I have in front of me. And I went for electrical, basically. So I do believe that engineering, like what I studied, was very interesting. It was a passion as well for mine. However, when I got into the work field, I didn't feel it's something I really want to grow in or want to pursue for my whole life. I kept looking back at certain jobs that relate back to marketing that I felt were more interesting. And one of my main goals at that age was basically to love what I do and to wake up happy going to work. I tried to pursue it as much as possible, and this is why I did my MBA. But I do believe that engineering did give me something or pay back something to me. Even if I didn't work on it, it gave me a specific engineer mentality, we call it, which is basically that we are very problem-solving oriented and very analytical. And that helps a lot when it comes to developing a career in marketing. You are faced day to day with challenges, with problems, with fires you need to put down, and that problem solving has to always be on. And the analytics as well of how you do your decisions, how you dive into data, how you try to work around information as well to make sure that every decision that you're taking is towards the right direction. So I think that I have grasped from my engineering degree.
So interesting. I think in lots of cultures, that idea of having to be a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer is so ingrained, and that people end up going down that path that might not actually fulfill them, but it's because it's fulfilling someone else's dreams or hopes that they do that. So it was very brave of you to say, this is really not for me, but then also seeing the positive in that education, that it still serves you in what you do today. Many people struggle with imposter syndrome when switching careers. Was this something that affected you at all? And if it did, can you share how you turned your doubts into strengths?
Well, I'm very familiar with it. When I was suffering from it, I didn't know what it was, but I think I powered through, and only later on I found out that it actually had a name and I could have actually tackled it in a much faster way. But basically, because I went into marketing, I was doing my MBA, but I didn't have that marketing or comms or PR kind of degree. So when I went into it, I started from the bottom, of course. So I joined as a digital executive at an Australian company in Malaysia, and I didn't know anything when it came to marketing yet because I was still studying my MBA. And educating myself, having a great boss back then, helped me start gaining that knowledge and experience of how we should be doing marketing properly. And then I didn't feel that imposter syndrome then. I kept on going through Malaysia's. And then after I graduated, I stayed for another 6 months, came back to Dubai, got another job that was focused on client servicing in marketing. And that gave me more exposure as well into how we run different 360 marketing projects. The first time I've ever actually felt it was the first time I held a marketing director position for a startup. So I went from a manager level to a marketing director of a startup. It was a one-person team of marketing. And I suddenly found myself in a position where I am planning their 5 years growth of marketing, their 5 years revenue, marketing revenue streams, building up marketing strategies. And I was doing all of that strategic role, but I was also getting my hands dirty and I was the execution unit too. So I was also writing captions of social media and posting it, writing EDMs and emailing it. And I think at that moment, when I first got that job, I felt like an imposter. I didn't feel like I should be in that position yet where I'm deciding for a full-on brand. However, I believe basically that when it comes to workplaces, I think females and males have different mentalities of how they handle specific situations and challenges. And it's usually that I think men have been more empowered to take leaps into uncomfortable zones, but women always do more calculated risks. So for me, at that moment, to jump into the marketing role of a startup, was a huge shift in my mentality. And that got me into the imposter syndrome. But yeah, powering through, learning, keeping myself educated, training myself and putting myself out of my comfort zone got me out of it, I think.
Yes, I think you're right. I think as time has progressed, we have started to recognize certain things and given them names and labels that we can understand. At the time, as you say, you didn't really know what it was. It was uncomfortable. You didn't like it, but the only thing you knew was to power through at the time. Whereas today we can actually recognize these different things and then maybe address them a little differently. You also mentioned the difference between male and female experiences. You often in your career found yourself in male-dominated boardrooms. How did those experiences influence the kind of leader you've become?
Well, basically, I found myself in male-dominated boardrooms, and I found myself in boardrooms where people were a lot older than me as well. I've been in multiple times in very uncomfortable situations where I am under the spotlight for myself, to be honest, to show what I'm capable of. So when it comes to male-dominant boardrooms, I've been blessed with women who had a certain power and a certain mentality to support other women as well. Like my current role right now, our CEO, for example, Nusha Ahsan, has been a great support in empowering the women of this company, getting them out of their comfort zone, getting them to deliver beyond what they're capable of. I think if it's not about the support of other people around you, it becomes a very dark place for you to be at.
Yeah, so the people that you are surrounded by has a big impact on your experience. At LinkViva, you mentioned your role at LinkViva. So at LinkViva, you scaled marketing from a one-person role to a 40-member team in less than a year. That's incredible. What did that process teach you about vision, resilience, and leading under pressure?
Well, I can tell you a bit about that. So basically, when I first joined LinkViva, like I said, I was a one person. However, I came in with a vision. Again, I was empowered by our CEO and by my direct line manager as well, Mike, and to deliver on this marketing department. So I remember the first pitch that we did as LinkViva, and we included marketing in it. I was fighting for it so hard. And being there, being present, we got the first project. And from there, I hired one more person, only one person. And then me and that person started taking the workload and to understand how we're going to deliver it. And then slowly we started hiring more and more people. Towards the end of the year, we had 40 people on ground, not mostly full-timers. Of course, a lot of them were freelancers as well to support us on projects. So the first project was Liwa Village, which was a cultural event in the UAE. So when we got that project, we were doing so well. We hired the right people, delivering the right quality of work. Client was so happy with what we're doing that they decided to award us a side project as well, just a few days before its opening. And I remember that day, and I remember them asking me, like, are you sure you're ready? Are you sure you can deliver? And I'm like, yes, I can. And I went into that asking for like 9 people to support, and I got only 2. But then more towards the project, the team has increased and the members have increased, and we were delivering amazing work that we were actually shortlisted in Middle East Events Show for Best Marketing Campaign of the Year. What I consider is a huge growth is beyond that as well. So after Liwa was done in 2024, going into 2025, it was the planning for the department, the revenue targets, the GP targets that we put in to grow this department from delivering one event to delivering 9 different events this year. It was an amazing journey, and it couldn't have been done without an excellent team and an excellent support and a shared vision across the business and across the marketing team as well. I think just going from that one until to 9 different events and just delivering it right now, we're mid-season at the moment. So it has been an exciting journey.
Absolutely incredible. Such remarkable growth, really taking on these really big challenges and being sure that you could deliver and then delivering and seeing the results. And then, as you say, going from 1 event to 9 events, that's absolutely incredible. You've reinvented yourself multiple times, as we've seen now. What advice would you give to listeners who feel stuck in their current path but want to build a more meaningful career?
I've been stuck multiple times. So to me, it's keeping yourself busy and never giving up, no matter what you're doing. Sometimes a small thing that you're working on excites you and motivates you and gets you more engaged to do something bigger and bigger and bigger. It's believing in yourself. And sometimes it's very hard when people who care about you believe in you, but you can't. But try as much as you can to listen to them because it's true. So believing in yourself, trusting people who are telling you to go for it, and getting out of your comfort zone. Nothing couldn't have done anything that I've done so far without getting out of my comfort zone and beating that beast, basically, that keeps scaring you and putting thoughts into your head that you're not going to be able to make it, you're going to be embarrassed, this is going to happen, something bad will happen out of it. Getting over those voices that discourage you is very important as well.
Some excellent points there. As you mentioned, believe in yourself. Of course, it's got to be intrinsic. You've got to know that you can. You've mentioned this a couple of times too, to have a good support system around you, having people who are spurring you on, giving you direction and helping you. And then also being willing to step outside your comfort zone. It's not going to be easy to make a change. So don't expect it to be easy, but be willing to make that change, and then the rewards are there. In your journey, what has been the hardest no or setback that you faced, and how did you turn that into motivation?
So one of the situations that really affected me throughout my career was basically one step where I was getting into a global company, and it was the first time that I find myself in that different, more corporate, more organized environment, and I was faced with a very toxic leadership. That toxic leadership was always putting me in a place where I need to be shrunk or minimized or silenced, and my whole capabilities and my abilities weren't being considered. So we have this saying in Arabic that says al-baqa al-aqwa, which is only the strong are able to remain existing. And what we changed it to is basically no, only the resilient. But at that moment, it wasn't to me any kind of resilience or strength. I knew that if I stayed in that environment and if I took out my resilience card and played it, it's not going to be a good effect on me, and took me time. So I decided to leave, to quit that job. And it took me so much time to rebuild that confidence. And Corona hit. And when Corona hit, it was a very bad time for a lot of people, but it was one of the best times for me because for me, I went ahead and explored branding myself and positioning myself. And I even created a website under my name and a social media page, and I started discussing case studies and putting out all of those marketing content and reaching out to people. And suddenly, in a couple of months, I was generating my own income, and it felt amazing. And that helped me kind of rebuild that toxicity that I faced. However, those specific moments still live with you, and it requires a lot of work, a lot of life coaching. I have my own life coach, for example. So a lot of those sessions with my life coach try to erase the effect of it and that doubt. It's about just putting yourself out there, accepting to know that you might get embarrassed, you might get put down, but you also might get cheered on and you might get supported. So that was my journey with it.
Wow, what a remarkable experience. Not always so good, but you are facing stereotypes, needing to break them, but in that process, coming up against the wall. And then sometimes the best strategy is just to remove yourself from a situation that's not serving you, which is what you did. I also love how you said that you have a life coach, somebody who's cheering you on, who's helping you see maybe your own blind spots. I think that's excellent advice for somebody who's struggling maybe with some of these issues we've mentioned, imposter syndrome, not being sure, to have somebody else there who's seeing the good qualities, who can help you build on your skill set that you have in place already.
Definitely.
For women in business trying to break into leadership, what advice would you share from your own climb?
I would say keep your voice loud. Make sure that you're being heard. Support your team as much as you can. Your team is the unit that brings you up. They deliver, you're delivering. If they're succeeding, you're succeeding. Make sure that you don't instill fear rather than instill respect and admiration and care. Those are the main things. And then when it comes to communication and powering through, and it's one thing that I'm working on myself, which is basically as you grow older, you feel that you're falling off the wagon of being trendy, especially when it comes to marketing. So just make sure you're educating yourself on a daily basis, even with things you feel that they are silly for you right now, but they're important for the generations you're targeting or you're speaking to. So just try to be up to date and with everything that's happening.
Again, some really excellent tips there. I like how you said to support your team, but to instill respect and care rather than fear, because your team will take you a long way. And I like also how you said stay up to date with what's happening in the industry, whether that's in marketing or in whatever industry you find yourself. Don't fall behind. Stay up to date with what is happening in your field. You've proven that marketing is about more than selling. It's about storytelling, culture, and community. How do you personally define impact in your work?
So when it comes to dealing with projects that have clients, mainly you have KPIs that are set, and the KPIs are about reach, how many people have seen your content, how many people have engaged with it, how many pieces of content did you release. It's all numbered. But to me, to be honest, I only feel that I've done a good job when I feel people are connected to that brand. So it's not just about, for example, it's not about just reaching Helmarie and Helmarie saw my ad, maybe she liked it and that's it. But it's about instilling that kind of, or touching basically something in Helmarie that makes her connect to that brand. Only then I feel that that's successful. One of the things we've done, for example, was with Liwa Village. So Liwa Village is in the Liwa region in Abu Dhabi, and it's a piece of land that's a pure desert. And we, as LinkViva, have built a huge village on that land, of course, for DCT, who are the main organizers. So basically, getting people to understand what Liwa Village is, the experience that they can get in the winter in the desert of the UAE with the beautiful weather, with having multiple zones that address your families where you can sit and sip coffee, or you can sit and watch the stars at night, or go and play your games in like adventurous games, or go listen to a concert. That kind of thing is very easy to promote as individual activities, but it's very hard to promote as a singular event that has all of kind of those different pillars. So creating emotional videos that are based on storytelling to get, for example, Helmarie to watch that video and feel, yes, I want to try every aspect of those. It's very hard. It's the combination of the music, of the sentences you're putting out, of the scenes you're choosing. It's all of that combined. And you keep doing that across different events. So suddenly you're doing it for Leo, but then you're doing it for Kayan, which is a wellness-focused event. Then you're doing it for Abu Dhabi Run and Ride, which is like a sports run across multiple locations. And then suddenly, you know what I mean? So it's shifting, but maintaining the core, which is making sure that you're leaving an impression inside people. That's what true marketing success is.
That sounds really excellent. So it's about having people react to the message that you're putting out, having people do something, take action. That is where you can then see the impact of the work that you're doing.
Yes.
Now we've come to the segment of our show where I would like to ask you some rapid fire questions, our version of a game show. Are you ready?
Yes.
What is the favorite campaign that you've ever worked on?
I think that's Al Mentor, which was a educational tech startup. And we were pushing a new, completely educational platform in Arabic specifically, and new mentors, and new user experience, new applications. So all of that was a very exciting challenge to put something new no one knows about yet out to the public. And that's very informative and that's very helpful for people. I think that was the most interesting campaign.
What is your go-to ritual when you hit a mental block?
Basically, it's my disconnect, which is basically by meeting a couple of friends, going out for shisha, sitting down, talking about anything but work. It's only that I'm able to clear my mind completely to come back with a fresh perspective.
A book or podcast that inspires your leadership style?
A podcast would be Diary of a CEO by Stephen Bartlett, but then a book would be, I'm sorry, maybe the title would sound wrong, but the book is really good, and it's Surrounding Yourselves by Idiots.
What does resilience mean to you?
Resilience means putting aside your ego. So making sure that when you receive feedback, when you receive a tough situation, don't take it in, don't make it personal, see the good in it and just push through.
What is one thing you do every day, no matter how busy you are?
I call my parents every day, no matter how busy I am.
I'm sure they're very appreciative for that. That's amazing. Well, thank you for playing along. Now I would like to ask you our signature green pill question. What was your green pill moment, the action or event that was the turning point for you or your career?
I have so many, to be honest. I come from, again, a Jordanian conservative family. My parents are very well off, and we have certain kind of restrictions when it comes to raising your daughters. For one of them, for example, is that we don't have daughters who would go and study abroad on their own or go work on their own abroad as well. So I fought for myself to study my master's degree basically in Malaysia. But then coming back to Dubai was also another challenge that I had to face with the family, where I had to, in a way, shift their perception towards having their daughter live away from them in another country and work on her own. And especially that I come from a well-off family. So I've been tempted, or I've been offered with a lot of easy things I could have taken, whether it's opening a new business and opening my own business back in Jordan or getting the latest car and all of that. But I seek my independence to make sure that every decision in my life that I take, I am accountable for, and to make sure that I am doing it on my own as well. So I have a great family. I have their amazing support, but I also worked really hard to get that independence and that authority and power to do my own decision making.
Excellent. And you've really shown that throughout your career since then, making your own decisions, breaking out of the mold, following your own path. And that's how you've realized success.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Ayah. Your journey from engineering to executive leadership, from edtech to cultural experiences, is proof that marketing, when done with purpose, can shape not just brands, but societies. Before we wrap up, where can our listeners connect with you or follow your work at LinkViva?
So I'm available on LinkedIn. I always talk about LinkViva as well. So you can always find me on LinkedIn under my name, Ayah YahIa. And you can always follow also our LinkViva pages on LinkedIn and on Instagram.
And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Matrix Green Pill podcast. If you were inspired by this conversation, please subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, continue to break stereotypes, surround yourself with your own cheerleaders, and reinvent yourself if you need to.
If you enjoy our conversations, please like and subscribe. See you next Wednesday.